The sun was barely cresting the horizon, painting the Kentucky hills in strokes of gold and crimson, when I heard the sharp rap of knuckles on my front door. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips, the steam curling like a ghost in the chilly morning air. I knew that knock. It was the kind that didn't ask permission, the kind that demanded attention. Karen. Again. I set the mug down on the scarred oak table, the clink of ceramic on wood echoing in my quiet kitchen, and steeled myself. Outside, my horses nickered softly, unaware of the storm brewing on my porch. I opened the door, and there she was, Karen Mitchell, HOA president, her blonde bob as sharp as her tongue, clutching a clipboard like it was the Constitution itself. "Mr. Callahan," she said, her voice dripping with that syrupy condescension I'd come to loathe. "Your farm is in violation of community standards. This land is community property now. You can't just keep it to yourself." My stomach twisted, a slow burn of anger rising. Community property. My family's farm, tilled by my grandfather's hands, where I'd scattered my wife's ashes under the old willow tree. I forced a smile, tight as a drum, and said, "Karen, you're going to need to explain that one real slow." The air smelled of dew and hay, but Karen's perfume some cloying floral nonsense cut through it like a knife. She thrust a piece of paper at me, her manicured nails glinting in the dawn light. "The HOA has voted," she declared, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Your farm's open fields are a public resource. Residents deserve access." I scanned the document, my heart pounding like a war drum. It was a petition, signed by a handful of neighbors I barely knew, claiming my 50 acre home. My sanctuary was somehow theirs to picnic on, to trample through, to claim. I'd moved here to escape the city, to rebuild after Sarah's death, to find peace in the rhythm of the seasons. Now, this woman, with her pearls and her power trip, was trying to rip it away. I handed the paper back, my voice low. "Dangerous. This is my land. Karen, my name's on the deed. You don't get to rewrite history." She smirked, undeterred, and said, "We'll see about that at the next meeting." The door slammed behind her, the sound echoing like a gunshot. I stood there, fists clenched, the morning's peace shattered. My farm wasn't just land, it was memory. It was Sarah's laughter as we danced in the barn. It was the ache of her absence in every sunrise. I'd be damned if I let Karen and her clipboard brigade take it. But I wasn't naive. She'd rallied enough of the HOA to make this a fight. And I was just one man, a widower with calloused hands and a heart still raw. I needed a plan. That night, I sat on the porch. The crickets sung a restless hum, and stared at the stars. Sarah used to say they were God's way of reminding us we're small, but never alone. I sighed, the weight of her absence pressing against my ribs, and made a decision. If Karen wanted a war, I'd give her one. The next morning, I drove into town, the truck's engine rumbling like my own simmering rage. At the hardware store, I loaded up on supply steel posts, heavy-duty wire, and a sign that read, "Private property, trespassers will be prosecuted." The clerk, a grizzled man named Hank with a beard like a briar patch, raised an eyebrow. "Trouble with the HOA, Jake?" he asked, ringing up my order. I grunted. "You could say that." Hank leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Heard Karen's been sniffing around other folks' land too. Old Mrs. Delaney's garden got reclaimed last month. You ain't alone." That stopped me cold. Mrs. Delaney, the 80-year-old widow who grew roses older than most of the HOA board. My anger flared hotter, but now it had a shape, a purpose. This wasn't just about me anymore. Back home, I got to work. The clang of hammer on steel rang out as I sank posts into the earth, each strike a defiance against Karen's audacity. Sweat stung my eyes, and the scent of fresh-turned soil filled my lungs, grounding me. By dusk, a sturdy fence outlined my property's edge, glinting in the fading light. But I wasn't done. I called a guy I knew from the next county over, a breeder of German shepherds with a reputation for loyalty fiercer than a wildfire. 2 days later, Zeus and Athena arrived sleek, black and tan guardians with eyes that could pierce your soul. Their barks echoed across the hills, a warning to anyone who dared cross the line. I scratched Zeus behind the ears, his fur warm under my fingers, and felt a flicker of hope. Let Karen try her nonsense now. The HOA meeting was held in the community center, a sterile box of a building that smelled of burnt coffee and bureaucracy. I walked in, boots thudding on the linoleum, and felt every eye turn to me. Karen stood at the podium, her smile as sharp as a blade. "Mr. Callahan," she began, her voice carrying that fake sweetness. "Your refusal to comply with community standards is unacceptable. We've received complaints about your aggressive dogs and that unsightly fence." The room murmured, a mix of agreement and unease. I stood, my heart thumping, and said, "My land's mine. Karen. Always has been. You don't get to decide what's community about it." Her eyes narrowed, but before she could fire back, a voice cut through the room like a whip. It was Mrs. Delaney, frail but fierce, her silver hair glowing under the fluorescent lights. "Karen Mitchell, you're a bully," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "You took my roses, said they were public beauty. You don't own us." The room gasped, and I felt a surge of gratitude for the old woman's courage. Karen's face reddened, but she pressed on, slamming her gavel. "This is about fairness," she snapped. "Jake's hoarding land we all deserve." That's when I pulled out my ACIA folder of documents, deeds, and letters from neighbors who'd had enough of Karen's overreach. I slid them across the table, my voice steady. "Fairness. How about you explain why you've been forging signatures to push your agenda?" The room fell silent, the air thick with shock. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, her composure cracking like thin ice. The truth unraveled fast. Mrs. Delaney wasn't the only victim. Karen had been strong-arming neighbors for months, using fake petitions and veiled threats to claim private land for her community vision. The documents I'd gathered thanks to Hank's tip and some late-night digging showed her signatures didn't match. Her claims didn't hold. The HOA board, stunned, voted to suspend her that night. Karen's face twisted, her eyes blazing with fury, but she had no words left. She stormed out, her heels clicking like gunfire on the floor. The room erupted in whispers, then applause, as Mrs. Delaney squeezed my hand, her eyes wet with relief. But the fight wasn't over. Karen, humiliated, doubled down. The next week, I woke to the sound of chainsaws. My heart sank as I ran outside, the dawn air sharp with the scent of pine and gasoline. Karen had hired a crew to cut through my fence, claiming eminent domain for the HOA. Zeus and Athena snarled, their barks a thunderous warning, and I grabbed my shotgun, not to shoot, but to make a point. "Get off my land," I roared, my voice raw with fury. The crew froze, their saws falling silent. But Karen stood defiant, her arms crossed. "You can't stop progress, Jake," she sneered. That's when I flipped the switch on the electric gate I'd installed. A low hum filled the air, the fence buzzing with a warning charge. Karen's eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw fear in them. "Progress," I said, stepping closer, the dog's at my side. "This is my home. You don't get to take it." The sheriff arrived an hour later, tipped off by a neighbor who'd seen the commotion. Karen tried to spin her story, but the evidence was damning: her forged documents, her unauthorized crew, her blatant trespassing. She was arrested on the spot, her protests echoing as she was led away in handcuffs. The crew packed up, their faces pale, and I stood by the gate, the dog's warm fur brushing my legs, watching the sun climb higher. The air smelled of victory, sharp and sweet, but it was bittersweet. I'd won, but at what cost? The fight had drained me, left scars deeper than the ones on my hands. That night, I sat under the willow tree, the one where Sarah's ashes rested, and let out a long, shuddering breath. The stars were out again, brighter now, and I felt her presence in the rustle of the leaves, in the quiet strength of the land we'd loved. Mrs. Delaney stopped by, a basket of her roses in hand, their petals soft as a promise. "You did good, Jake," she said, her voice warm. You reminded us we're stronger than we think. I nodded, my throat tight, and realized she was right. This wasn't just about my farm, it was about standing up. About protecting what matters. About fighting for home. The fence still stands. The dogs still patrol. And the HOA's quieter now. Under new leadership. Karen's gone. Her house for sale. Her name a cautionary tale whispered at community barbecues. I walk my fields every morning. The grass cool under my boots. And feel the weight of the land. It's history. It's heart. It's mine. But it's more than that, it's a testament to resilience. To the fire that burns when you refuse to let go. And every time I hear Zeus and Athena bark, I smile. They're not just guard dogs. They're my reminder, no one takes what's yours unless you let them.